Hey everybody, welcome to Ask Dr. Testosterone, starring Dr. George Touliatos, brought to you by his books, Bodybuilding, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Excellent overview of all the PEDs used in our sport, cycles, dosages, side effects, and then the sequel, Training, Nutrition, Supplementation in Bodybuilding, written last year, tells you about how to incorporate all that into your regimen. And of course, if you're on Amazon.com buying Dr. T's books, might as well buy mine. What a great book, Real Bodybuilding, Muscle Truth. From 25 years in the trenches. Now, from Athens, Greece, where it is 8 hours ahead of me, please welcome Dr. George Touliatos. Hey, Doc.
7, actually.
7?
And
My math.
Tell me your impression about the Indy Pro.
Indy Pro, first of all, I was happy because I could focus on just 2 divisions. Usually at a big show like New York Pro in a few days, we have, I think, 10 or 11, every single division. And you can't focus on anything because there's no time. But this one, the 212 division and the open men, that's all we had. And they were both pretty good. In fact, I was more impressed with the 212 division. They had much better condition than the open guys did at this particular show. And 3 men in the top 5 in the 212 division, it was their first pro contest ever. And they looked great. All 3 of them looked great. And the guy who won the show, his name is Tony O'Burton. I never heard of him before. He won the 212. First pro show. Nobody knew who he was, and he beat a couple really big names. So that was cool. And in the open, Justin Rodriguez, I've seen him take 2nd place many times, 3rd place many times. I was very happy for him to get the win. Very impressed with the runner-up, this guy, Mohammed El Elam from Russia, I think originally from Egypt, but huge guy. He really pushed Justin for the win. Really good show. Was
the theater packed?
It was, and there was no social distancing. They did make you wear a mask, but they had most of the seats filled for sure.
So vaccinated people had access, huh?
I think everybody had to wear a mask inside the theater, but when you walk, the difference is in Florida, where I'm going to be in a few days for New York Pro, you don't have to wear a mask anymore. You can wear one if you want to, but you don't have to. And I'm not going to wear a mask because
even though you're vaccinated, they force you to wear a mask indoors.
Yeah. Most places, not Florida, I think, in Texas. I think.
And if not vaccinated, you have to bring the PCR negative. Then.
Yeah, right. If you want to compete. I have my card and my wallet shows I was vaccinated.
Now that you return back to Massachusetts, you had to bring negative, or because you're vaccinated, you're excluded from this?
Oh, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm excluded. Every other time, I broke the law many times in 2020 because I was supposed to be. Not many times. A couple times I did get the test, and I would they have a tracking thing on their state website for people who travel, and they want you to make sure you're have a negative test result, or else you have to quarantine. And I can't stay indoors for another 2 weeks. So yeah, I'm fully vaxxed now, so I don't have to quarantine ever again.
Yeah.
I got the Johnson & Johnson just once.
Yeah,
good stuff. So yeah, Doc, New York Pro's coming up. That's going to be a much more exciting show. I should mention Blessing, because Blessing was the guy everybody was looking to see. I think he just came in flat. I don't think he filled out enough for the show, because I know what he looks like based on videos, and he was very flat. Oh, I want to mention to everybody, we had a show last week, the Bombshells show, right here on Muscular Development YouTube channel. Dr. Touliatos was the special guest, and they discussed women in PED use. It was really eye-opening. If you're not familiar with how PEDs are used by women in the sport, safer ways to do it, things to be careful of, Dr. Touliatos and the hosts Lauren Lauder and Emma Hyman, they really broke it down and got into it. Very good discussion, Doc.
Yeah, it was very, exclusive, very particular, and it's really delicate, the thing with women,
Yeah, I mean, it's a taboo subject, because you were talking about some things. They have to be much more careful than men, because it's not just the health. They actually have to worry about things like their voice. Once your voice gets deep as a woman from steroids, it never goes back, ever. You could be a bodybuilder for 4 years and then live another 50 years with a deep voice just from when you were a bodybuilder. And I've seen it. I've known women like that. It's sad, because, you can always shave the hair off your face and things like that, but your voice, that's it. Once that goes, you're done. So, check it out, especially any women watching or any men. If you have women who are using or considering using, definitely watch that episode of Bombshells from last week with Dr. Touliatos. lot of stuff you really need to know before you start using, or even if you're using now as a woman, just to keep a little bit of your femininity, because bodybuilding is only for a short time, and you don't want you don't want to be regretting. You don't want people years later
Stigmatized.
Stigmatized because of your deep voice, and your hairline might be up here, even higher than mine. So yeah. Okay, doctor, we got some questions while I was away. The viewers are lucky. We got some good questions this time. We always do. So Dr. T, the first question comes to you from Italy, also on the Mediterranean, I believe. So what is your opinion on HCG only for TRT at 500 IUs every day? It's possible to obtain 700 to 800 nanograms deciliter testosterone with HCG and a little bit of arimidex if needed.
Sorry, so just HCG or the HCG with testosterone?
No, he just wants to know if he can just use 500 IUs of HCG every day, and that
No,
would be.
I told you that. We said that in the previous episode.
No, that was last
doesn't
week.
Work alone because it aromatizes and also it shuts off the brain. And no, it's just good for fertility, you know. So besides 500 every day is a lot. It will be about 3,500 per week. So no, I doubt it. Now, better to use HCG with serums for a brief period of time as a PCT protocol.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's all. Yes.
I think another thing, just to put it out there, in the past, I remember talking about this with Dr. O'Connor on his show, and in his experience, when men tried to use HCG for their testosterone replacement or hormone replacement, it didn't. After a few months, it didn't do what it was supposed to do anymore. The effects.
Yes, it desensitized the Leydig receptor, so it doesn't work continuously in such high doses. So so you have to use it low, and along with testosterone, of course, in order to minimize the shutdown, the shrink of the scrotum and the Sertoli cells. You know.
Yeah, and TRT. The great thing about testosterone is it'll work forever. Yeah, it's not like it's going to stop work. 200 milligrams a week.
After a while, you get used to it and you hit a plateau in sex drive. So you have to introduce a little bit of HCG to produce some testosterone into the testicles.
Gotcha.
And this is the key to break down your plateau. During the replacement therapy.
Gotcha. Growth hormone questions. We love these. I love these. When taking GH for muscle building, what would be the lowest effective dose and the duration of the cycle, of course? And then he says, what about the addition of insulin, IGF, LR3, and or follistatin? What would the dose be? Perfect protocol. Yeah.
So you have to spike on IGF-1 and by the GH use. And if you use a good pharmaceutical grade growth hormone, you can do this either with 4 IUs. Let's say if you use Fumatro or Genotropin by Lilly or Pfizer.
Yeah.
Now, some other underground GH
generic.
Yes, they will give you lower IGF-1. So the key is to spike on IGF-1. And usually we manage this by using one larger dose instead of 2 smaller doses every 12 hours. Now, you have to know that GH works throughout time. It takes time. Now, for muscle growth, you need at least 6 months because GH is able to form new myocytes, new muscle fibers that will take a 6-month period of time in order to enlarge. So you multiply your muscle cells from 50 to 100, but those extra 50 will take some extra time in order to become larger, along with steroids, of course, and to swell, because steroids give you the hypertrophy, but growth factors give you the hyperplasia, so multiplying the cells.
It's about 6 months for it to really start seeing results in muscle growth.
Yeah, and actually, this is so-called permanent because you create new muscle cells, new muscle tissue. That will shrink afterwards if you leave it, okay?
Right. If
you quit. Now, about LR3, I used it once. It's fast-acting IGF-1. I use it 50 micrograms, so really potent, even though subcutaneous, So one dose of 50 micrograms will be enough in order to create a hypoglycemic effect post-workout, But in order to make sure to be safe, you have to use it right after you eat. Not just before when you have a serious hypoglycemic effect, and you're trembling, shivering, and you're not able to eat. You know, this is really risky.
Yeah.
And start having cold sweats. You know.
I,
Now, follistatin, I never tried follistatin. Of course, this is something experimental, and I highly doubt if it's under pharmaceutical grade stuff. You know, the myostatin inhibitor. Okay, but somebody who uses replacement therapy, TRT, why the hell he has to use all these special agents, you know, to grow? I mean, okay, we're talking about an FTB competitor or Olympia stage competitor, but all these things for somebody who's just replacing, it's crazy, it's outrageous, you know.
well, he did say cost is no problem, so he's a wealthy man, I'm assuming.
But I don't think it's worth the risk, you know. So just saying that on the basics, perhaps some GH, but LL3, follistatin, it sounds to me crazy, you know. Otherwise, go and compete, you know.
Where follistatin? Can you even buy follistatin? Is that like a research camp? Where? I've never heard of getting
research, you know, perhaps underground, you know, it was supposed to treat the Duchenne myopathy, cardiomyopathy, actually. But it's something experimental, I guess, and I'm not sure if it's available in any pharmacy in the world. Perhaps some clinics or some hospitals provided, you know, under extreme cases of muscle atrophy, you know?
Right. Yeah. I've never heard of any. I talked to a lot of people and no one's ever mentioned using follistatin ever.
Yeah, I heard of Rami may use something, or there was a biopsy in Flex Wheeler, Charvet, and Kevin Lebloni, and only Flex Wheeler had zero levels of myostatin, you know, so perhaps that's why he was able to grow in 2 months.
Wow. Yeah, I'll say. And then he said, while taking GH, first of all, he wanted to know the duration of the cycle, but you don't cycle growth hormone. It's something you're supposed to use forever, basically, right?
Yeah, some people do it in order to avoid the shutdown of GnRH, growth hormone releasing hormone, I'm sorry. Okay. But you have to know after a while, after your 40s or 50s, you cannot rely, and your hypophysis no longer produces enough amounts of GH, and this is, but yeah, in the hypophysis, this is
it's gone. It doesn't do anything anymore.
Yeah, that's why we wake up tired. You know, our skin loses this firm tone. You know, becomes more loose, and we have the visceral fat also, and we look older. We start having wrinkles. You know, and less collagenic fibers are synthesized.
Your face starts drooping. Oh, it's terrible. Anyway, don't get old, anybody. Yeah, there was a long question. So at the end, he also.
So some people cycle it and use some growth hormone releasing hormone secretagogues, but if you can afford it, use it nonstop.
Yeah, and he said, would also, if you're doing all that, the GH, the IGF-1, the insulin, should you also be on TRT and blast in between with DECA, test 3?
So this guy wants to cycle, obviously, you know.
Yeah. So
the HRT, the progressive HRT of somebody over 50 would be a little bit of DECA along with testosterone, but small doses, of course. Now, if this guy wants to cycle, okay, go in a show also to test your potential with other freaks, you know.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, wow, this guy's got all kinds of money. He wants to use all this stuff. Good for you, sir. Next question. I'm getting hard and painful muscle swellings after the administration of Sustanon for over a year now. It feels like a direct reaction. I'm not allergic to peanuts, but could it be the arachis oil in Sustanon?
Well, arachid oil is made of peanuts, you know. Perhaps he has some allergy, but the point is, the denser the compound, the more painful it is. So to me also, testosterone gives me pain because it's very dense and solid, the material. So testosterone propionate to me, which is 100 milligrams, doesn't give me pain at all because it's very smooth, very loose. The same with DECA, 50 milligrams per ml. So testosterone 400, as you said, in underground lab will be really painful because it's very compact. You know, the oil and the compound inside.
Yeah, those high, it's crazy because I don't even know. I'd love to get a real answer on this, but I've heard some people say it's impossible to even get 400 milligrams of testosterone into 1 milliliter of oil. It's not even chemically possible. I don't know.
I've heard of 300 some compounds.
I mean, 400. Why you guys got to be so lazy? You got to have 400 in just 1 ml. Can't you just spread it out over a couple shots?
Well, it's very convenient, you know, because you inject less oil and perhaps you want to stack with other compounds also, you know.
That's true. I mean, if you're doing a gram or God forbid, 2 grams of testosterone a week, I could see where that makes sense. Because that would be, if at 200 milligrams per mil, that'd be a lot of oil just to test. And then you're
And
putting
especially if you go paramine, then you have to go in a peak. That particular week, you're shooting a lot of stuff. You know?
Yeah. So now I know, I learned something. You taught me that the oil in sustenance comes from peanuts. It's peanut, like a peanut
But
oil?
arachidonic, you know, the arach, what's the oil that he named?
Iraq, he says Arachis oil.
Yeah, this comes in from the Greek terminology, is from peanuts.
Okay.
Arachidonic acid is very plenty in peanuts also, you know.
Okay. See, I always thought arachidonic acid came from spiders because I'm thinking arachnids.
If you have an allergy to peanuts, then you cannot stand this oil, you know.
Well, you know, my advice would be if something is giving you that much pain when you inject it, use something different. Why would you keep using it if it's hurting you all the time?
Exactly, man. You don't have to be sadomasochistic.
There's a lot of other kinds of testosterone esters and everything. Why would you stick with that one? I don't know. Okay. Hey, doctor. Hi, doctor. In a previous video, you mentioned that Anavar reduces TBG, thyroid binding globulin. And in this video, you mentioned it elevates TBG at minute 9:30. I'm not sure which video he meant. Oh, I think that was from last week. Could you please elaborate a little bit more about this? I'm doing an Anavar only cycle, 6 weeks, and I'm currently on week 3. If I stop now, do I need to take a PCT? And if I continue to week 6, what do you suggest as PCT? Only Clomid dosages, please. So Anavar reducing thyroid binding.
Oh, yes. My point is the following, that steroids and Anavar monotherapy, for instance, will affect thyroid function and will elevate thyroid binding globulin that has the same role as HBG. It binds to thyroid hormones, and the higher it is, the less thyroid hormone free thyroid hormones are able to circulate. So are less bioavailable thyroid hormones when thyroid binding globulin elevates, and also TSH also elevates. That makes hypoactive the thyroid gland. So in brief, Anavar monotherapy will elevate your TSH, and with this, in other words, will make you more hypoactive and slow down your metabolism, your thyroid gland, which is the thermostat, you know. So in this case, you have to manage it afterwards. Now, according to, regarding to the PCT, every steroid, of course, the DHT derivatives to a lesser degree will shut down the HPDA. Now, the DHT derivatives, number 1, they don't produce estrogens, and number 2 are low in androgenicity. So they suppress to a lesser degree the hypothalamic pituitary testicular axis. However, they can have a PCT without HCG, just with the use of sermazole, clomiphene, and tamoxifen in low doses. Just say 25 and 10 for a couple of weeks, you know. But the more you're using those compounds, the higher the suppression. So, as I said to the ladies in the other show, 20 milligrams of Anavar are able to shut off the menstrual cycle in a woman in 30 days.
Wow.
Perhaps 10 milligrams in 60 days. But you see that a moderate dose can progressively accumulate and do the same damage as a higher dose in the half period of time. So in men, yes, you may have a suppression 20% by the end of the cycle, you know. Still, it's a lower libido, you know, it's a lower sex drive. And you have to recover afterwards. So yes, clomiphene and Novadex are good agents.
25 and 10 milligrams daily, is that what you said?
Yeah, the low, half a pill.
Okay. Yeah. You know what's funny? We're talking about women and steroids. There's a guy named Coach Greg Doucette. He makes hilarious videos. He's yelling all the time, but he claims that steroids are 10 times more effective for women than they are for men. And I kind of believe that, because I've seen women take very low doses.
It's more obvious, I guess, more obvious. But women have to train seriously. You know?
Oh yeah, they do. But I'm saying 10 milligrams of Anavar, I've seen that make a big difference on a woman. Just 10 milligrams of Anavar a day. A man, that's not going to do anything for you.
And the side effects also are more prominent in women, you know?
Yeah, it's true. It's true, because these are male hormones. They're not supposed to, theoretically, they're not supposed to be putting them in their bodies. It's dangerous, but not like it's safe for me and you, but still. Final question. It's Windstraw. Hi, Doc. Does Windstraw act any different than Proviron or Masteron as a drying agent, or is it the so-called dry joints issue, a thing that comes from people that use it as a solo agent, crashing their estrogen? I can't find a theory on why it should be any different on this matter, apart from the aldosterone inhibition thing, which I guess most DHT derivatives do regardless.
Now, about the aldosterone inhibition, this is a benefit of trenbolone and stanozolol because they're extremely anabolic and they lower corticosteroids. So they lower both cortisol and aldosterone. So the good thing about aldosterone is that you don't have the water retention anymore in the subcutaneous. So it's a drying agent. It's perfect to use it pre-contest because you don't have the water retention with the skin, like with deca or with testosterone, for instance, or acute pause. Now, also, Windstraw is tremendous anabolic. So anabolic activity index of 330 that is able to stimulate the basal metabolic rate because simply it retains muscle during hard diet. Now, Proviron, which is Sterolone, and Masteron or Stanolone have very low anabolic index, are not serious anticatabolic drugs, you know? So just as DHT synthetic, they're able to dry because they have androstenogenic activity. Okay, so the more anabolic a drug is, the more muscle retain that will stimulate basal metabolic rate. Okay. However, the more androgenic compound is, like trenbolone, the more fat it will be able to oxidize. So high androgens like halotestin and trenbolone and M3 or even testosterone are able to burn the fat. Okay.
Yeah, when they say drying agent, I think that's kind of a misleading term because it's not like these
cutting.
They just don't make you hold any additional water. They're not really drying you out.
So it's not melting. They're not melting the fat, you know, just miraculously, except if they're highly androgenic, like trenbolone, for instance.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I often am. I heard the only steroid that's been proven to burn fat, and specifically in the abdominal region, is Anavar. Is that true?
Well, Anavar is able to elevate your free thyroxine in this case, and is able perhaps to speed up your metabolism. But Anavar is also the same anabolic as Windstraw, okay, with low androgenicity. But I never heard that it's able to have spot reduction, you know.
Maybe that's just a fantasy, you know. People
actually with trenbolone you're sweating,
yeah,
and this is a good sign that your basal metabolic rate is high.
The worst thing about trenbolone, in my experience, is very hard to sleep once you've been on trenbolone for a good 2 or 3 weeks.
It hits the nervous system, you know.
Yeah. You'll wake up 4, 5, 6 times a night, and you'll have a hard time going back to sleep. And you wake up exhausted. And that's no way to go through your day.
And you have this slight, perhaps fever, this feeling of sick and illness, like after the vaccination.
Yeah, it's true. The tren sweats. It's people wake up in the middle of the night soaked in sweat when they're on tren. You know, even in a cold room. It's
Guess
scary.
what? There was a boy, 23 years old, natty completely. At the first cycle, the fucking dealer told him to use tren, and he was training just for 2 years.
Wow.
Can you imagine this? A virgin guy,
I believe
with 2 years of training. It's like he wants to drive a Ferrari. He just rides the bicycle. You know, what the hell are they expecting to do? And of course, he looked like shit because he had no basics, you know?
Do you remember probably a few months ago, we talked about there was a video on YouTube that a 14-year-old boy made, and he was on tren. So 14 years old, he looked like a little skinny kid, and you know, he's probably getting a little bit of results, but that poor kid's going to pay a heavy price. And he said
steroids have to come after you reach your genetic potential, you know, after 10 years of training. He
bought them from a bodybuilder at the gym, and I want to know what adult in his right mind, I don't care if you're a steroid dealer
no
or
ethics,
not,
man.
no ethics, you know, like if you're a crack dealer, you're going to sell crack to a 10-year-old? Come on. I don't know. Anyway, doctor, that is all the questions we got this week. Guys, leave the questions right here below in the comments. We'll get to them next week. Dr. Touliatos is doing a very great service to all of us. Like I said, you can get steroid answers from these bro science guys, but there's very few opportunities to get answers from an actual medical doctor who was also a national bodybuilding champion. So we're very lucky to have you, doctor.
When is the next show now? Tampa, the New York.
New York Pro, and then the week after that is the Cali Pro.
Uh,
So three weekends in a row we have contests. Some of these guys will be in all three of them. I know Blessing is doing all three, but New York Pro is going to be I want to see. You know who Hassan Mustafa. You know him, right?
Crazy legs.
Yeah, I mean Hassan. It's going to be a battle between Nick Walker, Hassan, Justin Rodriguez.
Hassan is in the 212 or the Open?
Open. Yeah.
Open, eh?
He's about 245.
No, this Nick Walker reminds me of the Dallas, very promising.
He's huge, this kid, and he's
perhaps he lacks of the maturity,
a little bit, but he's not lacking anything. He's not missing any body parts. He's massive. He's getting in very good condition. He's young. He'll be much better, I think, in a year.
He looks like he lifts heavy. He has dense muscle, but perhaps the detail is missing, at least for now.
He's 26 years old. Give him a couple of years. I think he's going to be phenomenal.
So I bet around these guys, they started year just before the 20s, and never stopped.
Yeah, probably.
And I guess when did they start lifting? 16? I doubt it. So as long as they start day one of the gym, they start a year also, but they never stopped it, never quit.
I don't know if they started from day one, but I do know a lot of guys they start very early, maybe after 1 year of training. Not everyone's going to wait 10, 15 years of training. It's funny. I talked to Jose Raymond and I do videos. We have a show called No Way. It's his show called No Way Jose. And people don't believe he didn't start using steroids until he had already entered his first pro competition in 2009. And he was already in his 30s.
So let's hear his pro card natty.
Yeah, he actually.
How's disabled, Ronald? How's disabled to hard to not?
He was always hard because when he was very small, he was natural for all those years.
How can you be dry without drugs?
I've seen it. I've been to natural shows and they're tiny.
But skinny guys, perhaps. Or if you're big, come on, this is crazy.
Genetic freaks. That family, the Raymond family, they are genetic freaks. Tito Raymond.
Same about Ronnie, but in pro level, come on. We know people are abusing gear for 10 years in order to enter to gain the pro card.
Right. Well, Jose turned pro as a welterweight at 160. Well, I'm sorry, middleweight. He was a middleweight, 176 pounds. And then, ultimately he competed right at 212. So that's a gain of 25, 35, close to 40 pounds of muscle he put on at 5'3.5". That's like a 6-foot man putting on 70, 80 pounds of muscle. That's a lot of muscle he put on. Yeah. Anyway, well, that's the show. Appreciate it, doctor. As always, you're doing a great service to all the people around the world who really need your help and your answers. We thank you for that. And guys, check out the doctor's website, gtoul.com. Plenty of articles in Greek and English on there. Pick up his books at amazon.com. Check him out on Instagram at Dr. George Touliatos. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching Ask Dr. Testosterone. We'll see you next week. Yeah, buddy. All right.